"Your ticket is a fake." The words cracked through the terminal like the snap of a whip. The crowded hall fell silent. Every eye turned toward the counter, where a boarding pass was held up like evidence of a crime. Sarah Mitchell, 30, 2, stood behind the desk. Her hair was pulled tight, lips pressed into a sharp line, navy blazer crisp and severe, shoulders squared, eyes sharpened as if she were daring the crowd to agree with her. She did not bother to glance at her computer screen. No need to verify. One cold sentence had already sealed the man's fate. The man said nothing. Marcus Grant, 40, 6, dark, skinned, dressed in a tailored minimalist suit, stood unmoving. He did not flinch, did not argue. His body was stone, his hands resting lightly on the counter, fingers steady as though weightless. To the passengers watching, his silence felt like a shield. The air thickened. A teenager near the gate whispered, "Turn around." A phone camera clicked on. A woman clutched her suitcase tight, her eyes filled with worry. The announcement for Flight 267 to New York echoed overhead, but it had become meaningless background noise. All attention was fixed on the standoff unfolding. Sarah leaned closer, her perfume sharp in the air, her eyes drained of any sympathy. "We see these kinds of tickets all the time," she said, voice dripping with insinuation. "Cheap printouts from the internet. People like you always think first class belongs to you." Marcus exhaled, not the sigh of defeat, but of a man who had heard this script 100 times. He glanced at the torn edge of his ticket, the company logo perfectly embossed, the ink flawless. His eyes darkened, not with rage, but with the weight of bitter familiarity. A voice whispered behind him, "Why does he look like he belongs here more than anyone else?" Another replied, "Because he does." Sarah tapped her nails against the counter, each click like a gavel striking down a verdict. "Step aside. Wait for security." Marcus did not move. His silence roared louder than her command. On the electronic board overhead, even the flight updates seemed to stall. Tension stretched taut, like a wire about to snap. He adjusted his cufflink, a small but deliberate motion, anchoring himself to the moment. The crowd could feel it. Something was about to break. A wave was building, not to crash against him, but to smash everything around him. His mind flashed back. Atlanta, 1999. A 20-year, old boy in a frayed shirt standing in line for his first flight to a job interview. The ticket agent had looked him up and down, then shook her head. "That seat isn't for someone like you." The chance stolen, he wandered the sidewalk, cheap shoes blistering his feet. That humiliation became fire. That rejection hardened into steel. For 2 decades, he climbed rung by rung, built an empire, until today, at this very counter, that fire blazed again. "Fake ticket, step aside." "Step," Sarah repeated, her tone sour as acid dripping into his ear. Marcus stayed silent. But silence was not surrender. It was the thundering current of a hidden waterfall beneath the surface calm. A mocking laugh cut through the air. Ethan Ross, a male staffer with a loose tie and a smug face, swaggered forward. "Don't make a scene, buddy. Your seat's back in economy." His dismissive nod was a blade reopening an old wound. Whispers rippled. Someone muttered, "Why don't they just check the system?" Another added, "This isn't right." Yet no one stepped forward. Not yet. Sarah's confidence grew with an ally at her side. She grabbed the desk phone, her voice icy. Security. Passenger using a fraudulent ticket, refusing to comply. Each word was a drumbeat of indictment. Marcus remained still, palms on the counter, fingers relaxed. He had seen this play before, in banks, in hotels, in boardrooms. Accusation first, verification later, and he knew this was the moment when silence became the sharpest weapon. The atmosphere splintered. A man in a leather jacket muttered, "He hasn't even resisted." A woman holding her own boarding pass whispered, "That calm, that isn't guilt, it's something else." Marcus lowered his gaze to the metal trim of the counter, his fingertip tracing its edge slowly, grounding himself. In his memory, the cold stone of rejection reappeared, heavy as if resting in his pocket. But this time, it did not drag him down. It anchored him in place. Sarah cleared her throat, trying to pierce the wall of silence. "Do you hear me? I said step aside." Marcus tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing. Not a word left his lips. But that stare froze the air itself. A young student, Keith Miller, raised his phone higher, the red light blinking. "They're trying to throw him out. Just wait, this is going to forward." Beside him, an older woman whispered loudly enough for many to hear, "This is discrimination, plain and simple." Then came the heavy footsteps from the hall. Martin Hale, the duty manager, 48, grey at the temples, tie cinched like a noose, strode in. He did not smile, did not greet. His eyes swept the scene like a judge entering a courtroom where the verdict had already been written. Sarah exhaled, relieved at her reinforcements. "He presented a fake ticket and refused to cooperate. Security is on the way." Martin's eyes narrowed as he sized Marcus up, lips curling with disdain. "Figures," he muttered, loud enough for all to hear. The crowd stirred, phones raised higher. Marcus's silence had transformed into a weapon, leaving his accusers trembling. And in the very next moment, the truth was poised to strike. Martin Hale stopped directly in front of the counter, his leather shoes striking the polished tiles, each step echoing like nails hammered into a coffin. He was tall, broad, shouldered, his heavy breathing dripping with false authority. To the passengers, Martin was no longer just a duty manager. He was a self-appointed judge, ready to deliver a verdict on the spot. "You are wasting everyone's time," Martin barked, his voice lashing through the air like a whip. "Cheap tricks like this don't fool us. Step away from the gate immediately, or I will personally have security drag you out." The crowd gasped. Some passengers covered their mouths. Others leaned together to whisper. Marcus remained as still as stone. His face did not flicker, his eyes steady, his silence vast and unshaken like an ocean before a storm. Behind the counter, Sarah's lips curled briefly in triumph. She thought victory was hers. Ethan Ross folded his arms, smirking, eyes gleaming with contempt. They both mistook Marcus's silence as admission, as defeat. But the passengers felt something else. A man in a leather jacket whispered, He isn't shaking, not like someone lying. A silver-haired woman gripped her purse strap. That isn't a criminal. That's someone who knows exactly where he belongs. Martin stepped closer, his shadow spilling across the counter. His finger jabbed toward Marcus's chest, stopping just short of contact. You think standing silent makes you look strong? No, it makes you look guilty. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. They had just heard what should never have been spoken, a naked accusation without a shred of proof. Marcus slowly adjusted his cufflink. A small gesture, yet in that heavy air, it rang like a warning bell. Not defiance, not submission. A quiet reminder. You do not define my worth. Then, a young woman in a blue blazer broke the silence. Maya's voice trembled but carried clear. Why are you treating him like a criminal? He already showed his ticket. The terminal froze. Ethan narrowed his eyes, waving dismissively. Ma'am, please don't interfere. We know what we're doing. But Maya did not back down. Her voice grew louder, steadier. Do you? Because all we see is you bullying a man who has said nothing at all. Murmurs of agreement rose. A young father holding his child nodded. She's right. The boy whispered. Dad, why are they being so mean? Sarah flushed, fumbling for cover, tapping furiously on her keyboard. Policy is policy, she stammered. We must protect real customers. But the words rang hollow. Each syllable dropped like stones, pushing the crowd further away. A red light blinked. Keith Miller had raised his phone, recording directly at Sarah and Martin. Watch this, he murmured to his friend. This is going to spread everywhere. Martin spotted him, his eyes blazing. Turn that phone off now. This is an internal security matter. But it was too late. Another passenger raised a phone, then another. Soon the rows of seats were a forest of glowing screens, capturing every detail. And in the center of it all, Marcus remained silent. Not a word spoken, yet his stillness pulled every lens toward him, making the entire room orbit the man who refused to utter a single line. Heavy footsteps thundered again. From the hallway, 2 uniformed security officers approached, radios crackling. One rested a hand on his belt, fingers brushing the cold steel of handcuffs. Sarah inhaled deeply, her shoulders loosening as if salvation had arrived. Ethan smirked, sneering. It's over. The little drama ends here. But when the guards were only steps away, Marcus finally lifted his head. His dark eyes swept across the room, and the murmurs collapsed into silence. His voice rolled out for the first time, deep and resonant, carrying across the terminal like thunder beneath marble floors. Only 12 of these tickets exist, and you are holding one of them. The silence exploded into shock. Sarah froze, her eyelids fluttering rapidly. Ethan's smirk vanished into a scowl. Martin stood rigid, his pointing finger trembling. The crowd erupted with gasps and questions. 12 tickets? What does he mean? Could it be? And in that moment, the truth began to break through. Marcus Grant was not an ordinary passenger. He was the storm they had just foolishly awakened. The terminal froze after Marcus's words. Only 12 of these tickets exist. The line echoed, each syllable dropping onto the polished floor like a blade slicing through Sarah's arrogance. Her eyes blinked rapidly, her lips trembled, yet she forced out a twisted reply. Don't think a few fabricated lines can fool us. A cheap printed ticket doesn't make you important." Marcus did not answer. He tilted his head slightly, his gaze fixed on the ticket trembling in her hand. It was no ordinary slip of paper. Along the edge where the ink smudged, a golden shimmer caught the fluorescent light. The Horizon Airlines logo gleamed like the seal of a dynasty. A young passenger whispered, "Wait, I've read about this. Horizon issued a lifetime ticket owned by only a handful of people worldwide." Murmurs swept through the rows. Keith Miller, still recording with his phone, whispered to his friend, "Did you hear that? This is it. The Horizon Elite Founders ticket. Lifetime first class. Any flight, any time." Marcus placed one hand firmly on the counter, steady as stone. His eyes were not the eyes of a man being pushed aside, but of someone who had been trampled and had turned humiliation into a weapon. His voice dropped low, rumbling like distant thunder. "Each ticket carries my original signature on the back, because Horizon exists today, only because I created it." Gasps erupted, loud as crashing waves. Sarah looked as if she had been slapped across the face. Ethan's laugh broke into an awkward stutter. Martin stepped back, his accusing finger recoiling as though it had touched fire. The silver-haired woman stood, her voice trembling but clear. "My God, he's not just a passenger. He's the owner of this airline." Chaos erupted. Dozens of phones rose higher, red recording lights flooding the gate area. In Marcus's mind, memories surged back. 20 years ago, a 20-year-old boy in worn-out shoes had been thrown off a flight. "This seat isn't for people like you," they told him. That rejection had once crushed him, but now he owned the very skies they thought were locked away. His silence had never been fear. It had been a test, a mirror exposing the faces of those who hid behind authority. Sarah clawed at the last remnants of power, her voice cracking. "No, impossible. If you're so important, why travel alone, without guards, without an entourage?" Marcus's smile was cold, sharp, devoid of warmth. "Because I wanted to see with my own eyes how my employees treat passengers. And you just gave me the answer." The crowd erupted again. Maya turned to those around her, her eyes blazing. He tested them. He wanted the truth. Applause broke out, first scattered, then spreading. Not everyone joined, but enough to make Sarah tremble. Ethan swallowed hard. Martin clenched his jaw, his face rigid. Marcus drew a slim leather folder from his jacket and laid it gently on the counter. He opened it. A heavy sheet of paper gleamed with the embossed gold seal of Horizon Airlines. At the bottom corner, the familiar signature, Marcus Grant. He pushed the document toward Sarah, his voice steady and resonant. "This is the original charter. My name is not just on the ticket. It is on every single wing Horizon flies." Sarah's face drained of color, her hands frozen. She stared at the document as if it were her death sentence. The terminal held its breath. The man in the simple suit they had dismissed as an imposter now stood revealed as the true master of the skies. Marcus lowered his voice, each word slicing like a blade. "You called my ticket fake. But the only forgery here is the respect you claimed to represent." The crowd erupted. One clap, then another, then a wave. Like a tide, the applause surged, drowning the arrogance that had once dominated the counter. In that moment, Sarah, Ethan, and Martin saw it clearly. Power was not in a uniform or a name badge. Power stood before them, silent until now, and had just revealed its true face. The applause was still echoing off the ceiling of the terminal when Martin Hale slashed his hand through the air, as if to tear apart the truth that had just erupted. His face burned red, the collar around his neck pulled tight as veins throbbed against his temples. "Enough!" he roared, his voice grinding like iron on stone. "Don't let him fool you. A piece of paper does not make him the owner of this place. This is a scam." The crowd stirred, but their eyes had changed. No longer blindly supportive, they looked at Martin as a man drowning in the quicksand of his own arrogance. Sarah Mitchell swallowed hard, clinging to the last scraps of authority. She slammed the keyboard so hard that each strike rang sharp and hollow. "I just called security again. They're on their way. In just a few minutes, this will all be over." Ethan Ross jumped in, sneering. "That's right. Curtains closing. First class isn't for the kind of man who travels alone, waving a few old papers." Marcus did not move, but it was his stillness that silenced the hall. His eyes no longer held only calm. They now blazed like embers bursting into flame. He turned his cufflink once more. Click. A small sound, yet it rang in every ear like the toll of a bell. Marcus did not look at Sarah. He did not look at Martin. He looked directly into the raised phone cameras, and his voice rolled out, deep and steady, each word heavy as stone. "You call this fraud, but the real fraud is exactly what you have done here. Prejudice dressed up as policy. Contempt disguised as procedure." A shiver rippled through the crowd. Maya clutched her blazer tight, whispering, "He's speaking for all of us." The silver-haired woman nodded firmly, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes. All these years, who among us hasn't been treated as if we were unworthy?" Martin lunged forward, desperate to regain control. His voice was harsh, bitter. "Fine words. But words don't make you true. Your ticket still has no value. I'll have security drag you out myself." At that moment, two figures in blue appeared at the end of the concourse, their footsteps pounding closer. Their radios crackled, red lights flashing. Sarah exhaled in relief, her lips curling into a smile once again. Ethan folded his arms, smug and certain. They thought the finale had come. But just then, Marcus slowly reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and drew out a sleek black phone. The movement was unhurried, deliberate, as if he had counted down every second leading to this moment. Without glancing at the screen, his finger slid across his contacts and paused on one name. The blue glow reflected across his composed face. He pressed call. He lifted the phone. His voice rang out, calm to the point of icy. "Rachel, activate verification protocol now." The room froze. The guards halted mid-stride. Martin frowned, suspicion flickering in his eyes. Sarah stiffened, her lips parting, but no sound emerging. From the speaker came a woman's voice, sharp and clear as a blade, slicing through the heavy air. "Confirmed, Mr. Grant. Horizon system is connecting to the central records. The elite founder's ticket has been identified. Internal protocol is now active. Verification time, 15 seconds. Keith's phone buzzed wildly in his hand as live comments flooded the stream. What is this? Horizon Elite Founder? Is this real? The crowd pulsed with ragged breaths. Marcus lowered the phone, his gaze never leaving Martin. For the first time, his lips curved into a cold smile. You called me an imposter, Marcus said, his voice low but carrying like thunder. But the system I built never lies. The noise in the terminal dropped into a void as the speakerphone in Marcus's hand emitted a steady beep. Then the woman's voice cut through, cold and precise. Each word like a blade carved into stone. Verification complete. All 12 elite founders' tickets remain valid. Ticket number 07 is registered under firma Marcus Grant. The original signature has been confirmed. System record sealed. Timestamp 11:32. The entire hall erupted. A young woman gasped. My God, it's real! An old man at the back of the seating area shook his head over and over. Online certification, it can't be faked. This is the truth. Sarah Mitchell turned pale, her eyes darting wildly as if searching for an escape. Her trembling hands unconsciously crushed the corner of the ticket she still held. Ethan Ross jolted, his laugh breaking into fragments. This could be a system hack. But his words were drowned out by a rising storm of outrage. Martin Hale, clinging to the last scraps of control, snarled, Impossible. This is a stunt. There is no such thing as a founder's ticket. Don't let him fool you. Yet before his voice faded, the woman's voice returned, sharper than ever. Additional announcement. The elite founder's ticket was created at the founding of Horizon Airlines 20 years ago. Founder. Marcus Elijah Grant. The system has just confirmed shareholder records. All data is now public. Warning, any act of damaging or rejecting this ticket will be recorded as a highest-level policy violation. The crowd exploded. Maya leapt to her feet, her eyes blazing. Did you hear that? He's the founder. This ticket can never be revoked. Shouts echoed from every corner. Let him through! Stop blocking him! This is disgraceful! Dozens of phones lifted high, red recording lights flickering like a field of stars. Every eye fixed on Marcus, the man who had stood silent all this time, now revealed as the pillar of the room. The two uniformed guards froze mid-step. They exchanged a look, hands falling from their belts. One shook his head softly, whispering, No, I won't touch him. The other swallowed hard and stepped back. Martin's panic deepened. He lunged at the counter, slamming his palm down with a crack. Don't believe it. He's staging this. You're all being hypnotized. But at that moment, Marcus raised his head. His eyes blazed with calm authority and pride. He did not shout. He did not argue. He spoke one short line, each word cutting like steel. It was your system that just admitted the truth, not me. The terminal fell silent for a single heartbeat. Then came the eruption of applause. Keith Miller, still streaming, shouted over the roar. You heard it. He's not lying. The airline itself confirmed it. His screen lit up as viewers surged, comments flooding in. Legendary. Justice on the spot. Who is Marcus Grant, the airline's founder? Sarah struggled to stand, but her legs refused to obey. Ethan stumbled back a step, mouth agape. Martin froze in place, his eye now blood. Das all. Veins bulging in his neck as if ready to burst. Marcus turned toward them, his voice low and steady, calm but commanding. You thought you could humiliate me by tearing a piece of paper. But what is bound to my name cannot be torn, not by any hand. The crowd erupted again. Many passengers rose to their feet, clapping thunderously. Some even shouted his name. In that moment, the balance of power shifted completely, away from 3 arrogant employees and into the hands of the man they had dismissed. Maya wiped a tear from her cheek, whispering, This is true power. Power that doesn't need shouting, doesn't need boasting. Marcus remained silent, his gaze steady over the crowd. He knew the play was not finished, because this truth was only the beginning, and the next to fall would be those who believed they could crush him. The applause still echoed when Martin Hale slammed his hand on the counter, making the computer tremble. His face flushed crimson, his eyes blazing like fire. Enough! He roared, his voice hoarse, laced with fear and rage. Don't let him fool you. This is nothing but a performance, a pathetic charade. But Martin's outburst no longer carried weight. It was the cry of a cornered beast. Sarah Mitchell, her face pale as paper, clung desperately to the computer in front of her. She stammered, We need to call up a management. We can't be sure. Ethan Ross swallowed hard, his eyes darting around, searching for allies but finding only dozens of cameras aimed at him. Marcus Grant stood tall, shoulders steady, unshaken. He didn't need to shout. He didn't need to push. His silence carried the weight of authority. Calmly, he pulled out his phone once more, his hand steady as stone. His voice dropped, deep and resonant, like a slow drumbeat in the storm. Rachel, activate full system oversight. Connect the board of directors now. The reply on the other end rang out crisp and precise, like a military command. Confirmed. The Horizon board has been connected. Emergency session underway. Terminal feed is now broadcasting live. The room erupted. The crowd looked up, realizing the ceiling cameras were flashing, streaming everything directly to the company's board. A young woman whispered in shock, My God, the entire board is watching this. Keith Miller shouted into his live stream, The whole world will know. There's no way out for them now. Martin stumbled back, his face darkening, sweat pouring down his temples. He barked, his voice trembling. You have no authority. This is my station, my shift. You can't. Marcus cut him off, his voice steady and cold as steel. Your station. No, Martin. This is my legacy. I built it from nothing. And today, you've shown the world that it is being run by people blinded by prejudice. Sarah staggered, as if struck by an invisible blow. We didn't know who you were. Marcus turned his gaze on her, sharp and piercing. That is the problem. You think not knowing someone gives you the right to trample them. You believe status or skin color defines worth. But today, you will pay the price. The crowd erupted in cheers. Maya shouted, Yes! This is justice!" Applause merged with cries, forming a tidal wave crashing against the counter. Phones lifted high, the glow of red recording lights flaring like a volley of flares, illuminating the collapse of the 3 employees. Ethan trembled, retreating step by step. Sarah collapsed into her chair, clutching her head. Martin still tried to shout, but his voice was drowned beneath the roar. Marcus drew a deep breath. He knew the next moment would seal everything. He adjusted his cufflink, the light glinting off its edge. Then he fixed his gaze on Martin, his voice heavy as a gavel. "You thought you were throwing me off this flight. But the truth is, you've just thrown yourselves out of Horizon." The air was so thick it felt metallic with every breath. Martin Hale still tried to shout over the furious crowd, his voice cracking with fear and rage. This is a trap. He set us up. A staged performance to tarnish Horizon's reputation." But the phones raised high betrayed him. Every word, every gesture was being recorded, streamed live across dozens of feeds. There was no place left to hide. Sarah Mitchell covered her face, hands trembling uncontrollably. Ethan Ross pressed himself against the glass wall, stammering, I didn't mean anything. I was just following procedure." But his voice dwindled, drowned beneath the wave of angry shouts. Marcus Grant did not need to yell. He simply lifted his phone, his voice deep and steady, carrying the weight of a verdict. "Rachel, terminate all system access for Martin Hale, Sarah Mitchell, and Ethan Ross, immediately." The female voice responded with precision, leaving no room for doubt. "Confirmed. Access rights for 3 employees revoked. Employee badges deactivated. Internal devices frozen. Time, 11:37. Beep. The harsh sound came from the computer in front of Sarah. The screen went black, the keyboard dead. She burst into tears, slamming the keys in vain. Ethan swiped his badge at the side door. A red light blinked, beeped coldly, then went dark. He stared at the useless card in his hand, his face pale as a ghost. Martin pulled out his phone, but the screen flashed red, the chilling words glowing. Access denied. He froze, body trembling, then slammed his fist against the counter. The crowd erupted. Cheers shook the high ceiling of the terminal. A few people began clapping in rhythm, then the entire hall joined in, a tidal wave of sound crashing forward. Maya shouted, her voice breaking with emotion. "This is justice! Justice right here, right now!" Keith lowered his camera, eyes ablaze. He just ended 3 careers with a single command. Marcus adjusted his cufflink, the familiar gesture now a symbol of unshakable composure. His eyes swept across the 3 collapsing faces before him. "You tore up my ticket in front of hundreds of witnesses," he said, his voice cold as ice without raising it. "Now I tear down your power before the entire world." Sarah sobbed, clutching her face in despair. Ethan bowed his head, lips trembling, unable to form an apology. Martin, face blotched crimson, veins bulging on his neck, still managed to snarl one last defiance. You'll regret this. Horizon needs us. Without us, it will collapse." Marcus turned, his eyes dark as night, his voice unwavering. "No, Horizon does not need those who disgrace the skies. Horizon only needs the truth. And today, the truth has spoken." The crowd exploded once more in wild applause, relentless and thunderous. Some stood on their seats, chanting his name. The clapping and shouting merged into a storm of sound, drowning the arrogance of the three who once stood tall. And at the center of it all, Marcus Grant stood firm, neither smiling nor raging, as calm and immovable as stone. He needed no further words. The judgment had been delivered. The cheers thundered through the terminal like a storm sweeping across the hall. Yet in the heart of that storm, Marcus Grant remained still, his gaze deep, his presence calm and unshakable. Like a stone cliff against crashing waves, he raised his hand gently, not as a command, but as a simple gesture. And somehow, the roar began to fade, as if hundreds of hearts in the room sensed that silence now carried more weight than noise ever could. Marcus let his eyes move across the crowd, from the elderly woman trembling with emotion to the young student Keith still clutching his phone, streaming live, from Maya wiping away tears to the little boy gripping his father's hand, wide eyes too young to understand it all but already recognizing injustice. Marcus spoke, his voice not loud but steady and resonant, weaving through every corner. You have witnessed everything. I do not need to shout to prove who I am. Dignity requires no passport, no badge. It only requires respect. Sarah Mitchell sobbed into her hands, her shoulders shaking. Ethan Ross bowed his head, back pressed to the glass wall, avoiding every stare. Martin Hale stood stiff, his face flushed red, but the fire in his eyes had already burned out. Marcus looked at them, his gaze carrying no anger, only the weight of a verdict already sealed. You believed you had the right to decide who was worthy. But today, I remind you, no one has the right to trample another's dignity. No one. The crowd fell silent, many faces nodding firmly. The elderly woman whispered, her voice breaking. This is what we needed to hear long ago. A father holding his son murmured, Do you see, son? True strength is not in shouting, but in refusing to bow to injustice. The boy looked up, eyes shining, nodding as if engraving a lesson greater than any school could teach. Marcus slid his phone back into his pocket and for the final time adjusted his cufflink. A small gesture, yet it sealed everything that had just unfolded. He no longer looked at Sarah, nor at Ethan, nor at Martin. For him, their judgment had ended the moment the crowd rose against them. Instead, he looked out over the sea of people, his gaze burning with calm clarity. Power does not lie in a name tag or a uniform. It does not sit in a first-class seat. True power lies in how we treat each other, even when we believe no one is watching. Applause rose again, but this time not with fury. It was slower, deeper, like a harmony of agreement and conviction. Maya pressed her hand to her chest, whispering, This is the real lesson. And in that moment, the entire departure hall, once an arena of arrogance and humiliation, transformed into a sanctuary of one truth. Dignity does not need permission to exist. The air held still for a long beat after Marcus Grant's reminder. Then, as if pulled by an invisible thread, the crowd parted, creating a clear path. The walkway to the boarding gate stretched open, gleaming under the white lights of the terminal. Marcus stepped forward. Each stride was slow, yet resolute, the sound of his shoes striking the polished floor, echoing like the beat of a fateful drum. He did not have to urge anyone. The crowd moved back on its own, as if a sea of people instinctively knew it must yield to true power. The phones held high no longer served only to record. They now resembled torches, illuminating the path of the man they had moments ago dismissed as a fraudulent passenger. Behind him, the three who once carried themselves with arrogance now looked as though they had been left behind in a ruined graveyard. Sarah Mitchell collapsed into her seat, her face streaked with tears, her fingers still tapping desperately against a dead keyboard. Ethan Ross leaned against the glass wall, eyes hollow, his employee badge slipping from his grasp, spinning across the floor before coming to a silent stop. Martin Hale stood rigid, his fists clenched so tightly blood seeped at the knuckles, but his eyes were vacant, for the authority he once believed in had evaporated, leaving only a cold void. Marcus did not look back. He didn't need to. Their downfall was not sealed by his words, but by his silence, the silence that compelled the world itself to speak for him. A young student whispered as Marcus passed. He didn't need to shout. He just needed to stand firm. The elderly woman nodded, her eyes alight. Yes, and we will remember this moment for the rest of our lives. A child, cradled in his father's arms, suddenly raised his tiny hand and waved at Marcus. He paused for a second, then nodded gently, a fleeting smile crossing his face, a brief smile, yet warm enough to soften the entire hall. Marcus walked on, tall and unwavering, each step pressing heavier onto the truth that had just been laid bare. The boarding gate ahead stood open. No guards, no arguments, no obstacles. Only a profound respect filling the air, wrapping around his every step. The crowd applauded once more, not in a crashing wave this time, but as a solemn farewell, a reverent melody. And within that echo, the image became clear. Marcus Grant, the man once accused of being an imposter, now walked forward as the rightful master of the skies. The boarding gate opened, white light spilling out like a passage into another world. Marcus Grant paused for a moment, letting the applause behind him fade into a warm echo. He did not need to look back. He knew that entire hall had etched his image into memory, not as a passenger, but as a living reminder. His polished black shoes crossed the threshold. The green carpet of the jet bridge stretched before him, quiet and straight, as if the sky itself were laying out the path. Each step he took was no longer weighed down by humiliation, but steady with the strength of someone who had triumphed without raising his voice. Behind him, those who had shamed him were reduced to shadows. Sarah sat collapsed, her sobs choked and broken. Ethan stared at the floor, his eyes hollow like an empty shell. Martin's shoulders trembled, his eyes bloodshot. But there was nothing left for him to hold on to. They had not only lost their jobs, they had lost something far more valuable, the trust of a world that was watching. Marcus moved slowly, yet the hearts of those behind him pounded faster. Every camera held high, every call locked onto him, as if desperate to capture every fragment of this moment. One passenger whispered, "He never had to shout," yet the whole world heard him. The elderly woman nodded firmly, her voice steady with conviction. Dignity doesn't ask for permission. It only needs one person strong enough to stand. As Marcus placed his hand on the final doorway, he turned his head, not toward the three defeated figures, but toward the crowd. Faces lit with hope, faces that now believed justice could appear even in the most ordinary of places. At a boarding gate, through a ticket once called fake. His voice carried out, not loud, but resonant like distant thunder. You've seen it. Dignity doesn't bow. Never. Then he turned, his posture tall and unwavering, stepping into the jet bridge until his figure disappeared. But the echo remained, an imprint carved into every tile, into every eye that had witnessed it. The applause behind him erupted one final time, fierce and unrelenting, crashing like waves against stone. And within that sound, a single message rang clear, etched deep into every heart. Justice does not need to shout, it only needs to stand firm. In this world, people often believe power lies in a seat, in a nameplate, in a uniform worn across the shoulders. But the story of Marcus Grant shows us that true power lies in dignity. The one thing no one has the right to trample, and no one can ever take away. A ticket once called fake became a mirror that exposed arrogance and prejudice, and the silence of one man forced the entire world to speak. This was not just a personal victory, but a reminder for everyone. Justice does not need permission to exist. It only needs one person willing to stand firm. If you believe dignity should never be bargained, hit like to spread this message. Don't forget to subscribe to join us in the stories ahead, where we continue to witness justice breaking through in the midst of everyday life. And I want to hear from you. Leave a comment with just 2 words: stand tall. Because change does not begin with the crowd. It begins with one person, with you. When you choose not to bow before injustice,